Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we are going to be taking a look at something I think a lot of people are curious about, and I know I am. It's morning routines.
Absolutely. And we'll be drawing from my Morning Routine by Benjamin Spall and Xander.
Yeah, and this book basically digs into the routines of so many different successful people. I'm talking like entrepreneurs and artists and athletes, you name it.
It's really fascinating to see how people structure their mornings, right?
Absolutely.
Because the core idea is that a good day doesn't just happen by accident. And the foundation for that is a good morning routine. A good morning routine can really set the stage for your whole day. And we're not just talking about productivity here.
Right.
It's about setting yourself up for success and well-being, in all aspects of your life.
Okay, so I'm already hearing that it's not about finding this one perfect morning routine that's going to magically work for everyone.
Exactly. The authors emphasize this over and over. The book showcases such a diverse range of routines, and what they really want is for you to find what works for you. Your personality, your goals, your lifestyle.
So it's all about personalization.
Exactly.
Okay. So where do we even begin with this whole morning routine thing? I mean, I guess the most obvious place to start is with actually getting out of bed.
Oh, absolutely. Waking up, it might sound simple, but, for some people, that's the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, and the book actually shares an anecdote about Caroline Paul, who's an author and a firefighter. And she is dedicated to her routine. She travels a lot, but she even packs protein bars and coffee in her suitcase so she can stick to it wherever she is.
What's interesting about that? It shows how important it is to actually prioritize your routine. It's more than just the actions, it's the mindset.
Yeah, that level of commitment.
Exactly.
Now, contrast that with James Freeman, who's the founder of Blue Bottle Coffee. He has this awesome vintage espresso machine that he sets on timer so it's all preheated and ready for him when he wakes up.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Right. I can't decide if it's more about the coffee itself or just having something enjoyable to look forward to when you first open your eyes.
I think it speaks to how important it is to start the day with something positive, something that makes you want to get out of bed. Like you were saying, it could be a cup of coffee or a walk in nature, listening to your favorite music, anything that brings you joy.
In case you feel good.
Exactly. And, for those who really struggle to get out of bed, the book has a pretty interesting suggestion. Get a dog.
Yeah. Can't hit that snooze button when you have a furry friend who needs a walk.
Right. It's not just about the physical act of getting up. It's the responsibility, the routine you build around caring for your pet.
Speaking of routine, the book talks a lot about intentionality and structure, especially with your wake-up time.
Yeah, they suggest setting a consistent wake-up time, something that gives you enough time to ease into your day, but also doesn't make you crash in the afternoon.
So finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, and they really advocate for a gradual approach. If you want to start waking up earlier, don't just suddenly change everything. Start by shifting your wake-up time by 5 minutes each week until you reach your goal.
Baby steps.
Exactly. You want to build sustainable habits, not shock your system into giving up.
Makes total sense. And on that note of gradual changes, they also talk about the dreaded snooze button.
Ah, yes, the snooze button. It might seem tempting, but honestly, it really messes with your sleep cycle and you end up feeling more tired.
Oh, I've definitely been there. You finally drag yourself out of bed, and you just feel worse than if you'd gotten up when the alarm first went off.
It's true. Hitting snooze is like trying to force yourself back into a light, fragmented sleep. It's not refreshing at all.
Okay, so we've covered waking up, setting a consistent time, and no snoozing. What's next?
Well, once you're actually up and out of bed, the focus shifts to maximizing your focus and productivity during those early hours.
Okay, that's where it gets really interesting. We all want to be more productive, right? But how do those super successful people actually do it?
Well, the book has tons of strategies, but one that stood out to me is the idea of completing at least one task before you even check your email.
Oh, that's a good one. I know I can get lost in my inbox first thing, and then suddenly I'm overwhelmed and haven't even started my own to-do list.
Exactly. And the book highlights Ryan Holiday, he's an author, and he prioritizes finishing one meaningful task before he even looks at email.
That's so smart. It's like you're setting the tone for the day, being proactive instead of reactive.
Right, you're in control of your agenda rather than letting the demands of others dictate your every move.
Love that.
Huh?
And then there's Sheena Brady, the founder of Tea's Tea. Her morning routine is incredibly structured, practically down to the minute.
She's definitely a planner. But it really shows how much successful people value intentionality, being deliberate with your time.
Not just being busy, but being productive.
Exactly.
So we've heard from early birds, dog walkers, meticulous planners.
Yeah.
Is there like a common thread that runs through all these different approaches?
I think what unites them all is the commitment to creating space for what really matters to them. Whether it's focused work, creative time, family time, or even just a moment of peace, it's about being intentional.
Taking ownership of your morning.
Yes, and that actually leads us to another important point: the power of evening routines. The book emphasizes that your morning actually begins the night before.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. How does what you do in the evening impact your morning?
Well, think about it. A well-designed evening routine can set you up for success the next day. It's all about preparation. The book talks about creating a shutdown ritual like Cal Newport describes in his book, Deep Work.
Okay, what does that look like?
Basically, you review any unfinished tasks, make a plan for tackling them, and then mentally close the door on work for the day. It allows you to wake up feeling refreshed and focused instead of carrying yesterday's stress.
So it's about actively transitioning from work mode to relax mode.
Yes. Creating a clear separation between your professional life and your personal life. Giving yourself permission to truly disconnect and recharge.
That sounds amazing, especially in our always-on culture. It's so easy to feel constantly bombarded with information and demands.
Right. The shutdown ritual is like taking back your time and energy, making sure you're not carrying the weight of work into your evening or, even worse, into your sleep.
That's such a good point. The book also suggests doing things like cleaning up your living space, especially the kitchen before bed.
Yes. There's something so calming about waking up to a clean and organized environment. It can really boost your mood and productivity.
I can definitely relate to that. I feel so much more energized in the morning when I don't have to face a mountain of dishes.
Right. It's like removing a mental obstacle before you even start your day.
Okay, so we've talked about waking up intentionality, focus, even evening routines. But what about the most essential ingredient for a successful morning? Sleep.
You're absolutely right. You can have the most amazing morning routine, but if you're exhausted, it's not going to do much good.
Exactly. The book dedicates a whole chapter to sleep, and they highlight people like Ariana Huffington, who makes it a point to gently escort all her electronics out of her bedroom before bed.
She even has a designated charging station outside her bedroom to avoid temptation. It's about creating a sanctuary for sleep free from distractions.
And it's not just about willpower. It's about understanding how blue light from our devices messes with our sleep cycle.
Right. It suppresses melatonin, which is the hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. So by reducing blue light exposure, we can actually help our bodies prepare for sleep naturally.
So putting away our phones and laptops before bed isn't just about being disciplined. It's about working with our biology to improve our sleep.
Exactly. The book also talks about Brad Feld, who's a venture capitalist. He actually tracks his sleep patterns super meticulously to understand how they impact his energy levels and even his decision-making.
So it's about being mindful of our sleep habits and recognizing their impact on our overall well-being.
Precisely. Brad's approach shows how important it is to see sleep as a valuable investment in our health and productivity.
So the takeaway is that it's not just about the quantity of sleep, but the quality of sleep.
Right. We need to create the right conditions for restful, restorative sleep if we want to wake up feeling energized and ready to go.
And the book emphasizes that most adults need between 7 and 9 hours of quality sleep each night.
It also stresses the importance of consistency. Going to bed and waking up around the same time each day helps regulate your natural sleep-wake cycle.
All this talk about sleep is making me rethink my own habits. I definitely have some room for improvement.
Well, that's a great takeaway. It's not about feeling guilty. It's about becoming more aware of our habits and seeing where we can make positive changes.
So to recap, we've covered waking up, intentionality, focus, evening routines, and the importance of sleep. What are some key takeaways you want listeners to remember from this deep dive into morning routines?
Well, the biggest thing is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to morning routines. The book is full of so many diverse examples, and what really matters is finding what resonates with you, your personality, your goals.
So it's all about personalization again.
Absolutely. And the second key point is the importance of consistency and commitment. You know, a routine is only effective if you actually stick to it, even when you don't feel like it.
It's about building those habits, those automatic responses that set you up for success day after day.
You got it.
This has been a fascinating look at morning routines. What are your final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up part 1 of this deep dive?
I'd say just take some time to reflect on what resonated with you today, what sparked your interest, what made you think differently about your own morning routine.
Welcome back. We're diving deeper into some specifics of these morning routines.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about how this all works for people with different lifestyles, like parents, for example. Kids don't exactly run on a structured schedule all the time. You're so right, and the book actually addresses this head on. There's a whole section about how successful parents manage to fit in their own routines, even with the demands of family life.
So they're not suggesting that parents have to wake up at the crack of dawn to meditate while the kids are still asleep.
Not necessarily. I mean, it might work for some people, but the key is recognizing that even small pockets of time can be really valuable. A lot of the parents featured in the book talk about how important it is to wake up even just 30 minutes before their kids do.
That makes a lot more sense. I can definitely see how having even a little bit of me time before the day really kicks off could make a big difference.
It's about giving yourself a chance to breathe and set the tone for the day. Even if it's just a few minutes to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee or do a quick meditation, those little moments can have a ripple effect.
Speaking of setting the tone, the book also talks about the benefits of morning workouts.
Absolutely. And they highlight how exercise doesn't just benefit your physical health, but also your mental clarity and focus.
I can definitely attest to that. There's something about a morning workout that energizes me and makes me feel so much more ready to tackle the day.
And the book presents a really wide range of approaches to morning exercise, from high-intensity interval training to yoga to just a simple walk. It's about finding what works for you and your lifestyle.
Right. It doesn't have to be some crazy intense workout. Even a short walk or some gentle stretching can make a difference.
The most important thing is to make it a non-negotiable part of your day. Many of the people interviewed in the book talk about treating their workouts like appointments they can't cancel.
I love that. It's about making your health and well-being a priority and scheduling it into your routine.
And they suggest some practical strategies for making exercise a habit too, like laying out your workout clothes the night before or finding a fitness class that holds you accountable.
Those are such great tips. It's about removing those mental barriers that we sometimes put up.
Exactly. And beyond physical exercise, they also talk about the benefits of incorporating some morning meditation.
Okay, I'm curious about that. I've always been a little intimidated by meditation. It seems kind of mystical or difficult.
They actually do a great job of demystifying meditation. They emphasize that it's not just for monks or yogis. It's something that anyone can use to improve their focus, reduce stress, and just feel better overall.
So it's more accessible than I thought.
Absolutely. And just like with exercise, they present a bunch of different approaches to meditation. You've got mindfulness meditation, guided meditation, walking meditation. There really is something for everyone.
So it's about finding a style that you connect with and that fits into your life.
Exactly. And one of the most important things they stress is that meditation doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out process.
That's a relief. Sometimes I feel like I just don't have the time for a full meditation session.
I get it. But the book highlights the value of even short bursts of meditation. Even a few minutes of focused breathing can make a positive difference.
So it's about finding those little pockets of mindfulness wherever you can fit them in.
Yes. Now, before we go any further, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. The power of evening routines.
Right, that whole idea that a successful morning actually starts the night before.
The book has some really insightful advice on crafting an evening routine that promotes relaxation and sets you up for a smoother, more productive morning.
Okay, so what are some of the key ingredients of a good evening routine?
Well, we've already mentioned creating a to-do list for the next day and tidying up your living space, but they also really emphasize the importance of winding down and disconnecting from technology at least an hour before bed.
I know, I've definitely had nights where I couldn't sleep after scrolling through social media right before bed.
That's because the blue light from those devices can interfere with our melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
So no phones, tablets, or laptops in the hour before bed.
Ideally in a separate room altogether. The book suggests replacing those activities with calming things like reading, taking a bath, spending time with loved ones.
All things that sound much more conducive to a good night's sleep.
Exactly. It's all about easing the transition from the busyness of the day to the peacefulness of the night. And this actually leads us to another important element of a good morning routine: self-care.
I love that. It's not just about checking things off a list. It's about taking care of our mental and emotional well-being, too.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that your morning routine should include activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul.
So what are some examples of self-care activities that we can build into our mornings?
They offer a really wide range, from journaling and reading to spending time in nature or just savoring a cup of coffee in peace and quiet.
It's about creating space for those things that bring us joy and help us feel centered.
And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Even just 5 or 10 minutes devoted to something you love can make a difference.
With all this talk about routines and productivity, I have to ask, is there any room for spontaneity?
That's a great question. Routines shouldn't feel like a prison. It's not about being rigid. It's about creating a supportive framework for your day.
So it's about finding that balance between structure and flexibility.
Exactly. The book stresses that routines need to be adaptable. Life happens. Unexpected things come up. And it's important to adjust your routine accordingly.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about having a plan, but being willing to deviate from it when you need to.
Right. And they actually have a whole chapter on adapting your routine when you're traveling or dealing with other disruptions.
That's so helpful. I always struggle to stick to my routine when I'm on the road.
They suggest packing some essentials like workout clothes, healthy snacks, maybe even a travel-size meditation cushion.
It's about creating a sense of familiarity even when you're outside your normal environment.
And they emphasize the importance of simplifying your routine when you're traveling too. Just focus on those core elements that help you feel grounded.
That makes so much sense. It's about being realistic and not trying to force a complex routine into a situation where it just doesn't fit.
Okay, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to highlight one last takeaway from the book.
All right, I'm listening.
It's the idea that creating a successful morning routine is an ongoing journey. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about constantly experimenting and refining.
That's actually really reassuring. It takes the pressure off. And it makes it more about curiosity and finding what works for you.
That's exactly the mindset I want you to carry with you into the final part of our deep dive. We'll be wrapping up our exploration of my morning routine and talking about how to apply these insights to your own life.
Sounds good. I'm excited for it. We've covered so much ground in this part, from strategies for parents to the benefits of exercise, meditation, and self-care.
I hope you're feeling inspired to try some of these ideas and create a morning routine that truly supports your well-being and success.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive into my morning routine. We've covered so much ground so far. It's been incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing how much there is to say about such a seemingly simple topic, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
It really shows how those first few hours of the day can have a ripple effect on everything else. So before we wrap things up, I'm curious to hear your overall impressions of the book. What stood out to you the most?
One of the things that really struck me was the sheer variety of routines that the authors present. It's a powerful reminder that there's no single right way to structure your morning. What works for a busy CEO might be completely different from what works for an artist or a student or a stay-at-home parent.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you and your unique circumstances.
And that's one of the things I love about this book. It's not trying to tell you what to do. It's more about giving you a bunch of different options and encouraging you to experiment and see what fits your personality, your goals, your lifestyle.
And even with all that variety, I noticed some common threads running through many of the routines, like the importance of starting the day with intention.
Absolutely. Whether that means setting clear goals or engaging in a mindfulness practice like meditation, or even just taking a moment to appreciate the simple things. It's about being proactive and consciously choosing how you want to begin your day.
I love that. Instead of just reacting to whatever comes your way, you're setting the tone for the hours ahead.
Right. And another thing that really resonated with me was the power of small, consistent actions. You don't have to completely overhaul your life to create a more positive morning routine. Even little changes like waking up a few minutes earlier, drinking a glass of water first thing, or taking a short walk can make a difference over time.
It's about building those habits bit by bit. It reminds me of that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
It applies to morning routines, too.
Exactly. And we've talked a lot about productivity and goal setting, but I also appreciate how much the book emphasizes self-care.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that morning routines aren't just about getting things done. They're also about nourishing our mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. It's about treating yourself with kindness and compassion and incorporating those little moments of joy and peace into your day.
So we've talked about the what and the why of morning routines. Now I want to get into the how. What practical steps can our listeners take to actually start implementing these ideas into their own lives?
Well, the first step is to simply reflect on your current morning routine. Take a look at what's already working for you, what could be improved. Are there any elements from the book that you'd like to try?
It's about being honest with yourself and seeing where you might want to make some adjustments.
And remember, you don't have to go all in right away. Start small. Pick 1 or 2 things that resonate with you and focus on making them consistent habits.
Like maybe you start by adding a 5-minute meditation to your morning. Or you could experiment with waking up 15 minutes earlier to enjoy a peaceful cup of coffee.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Different things work for different people, so play around with it until you find what feels right for you.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You're constantly learning and refining your routine. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect morning routine.
So true. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. What would your ideal morning routine look like if time, resources, and other constraints weren't an issue?
Ooh, that's a good one. What would you do with those precious morning hours if you had complete freedom? Would you travel to a different country every day? Would you dedicate yourself to a creative pursuit? Would you simply savor the stillness of a quiet morning at home?
I think it's a really valuable exercise to let yourself dream big and envision that perfect morning routine. What brings you joy? What makes you feel alive and energized?
And who knows, maybe some elements of that dream routine can be incorporated into your real life, even with its limitations.
It's all about finding those little sparks of magic that can transform your morning and your entire day.
Well said.
Right.
And on that note, I think it's time to conclude our deep dive into my morning routine.
I hope this exploration has been insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing for some of you.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a brand new topic. But until then, stay curious and keep exploring those fascinating corners of knowledge. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.